evening and welcome to the Thai PBS World. In the age of disruption, small and large organizations around the world are driven to change by technology and the internet. But the main challenge is how, especially for family business. Last week, Kate Sweetman, the coach on leadership who is world-renowned, came to Thailand and she conducted a workshop for leaders in Thailand. In the second part of the interview, I asked her what's the factor if leaders refuse to change, what will happen in the age of disruption.
And the 6 deadly blindfolds are actually barriers that individuals, teams, and organizations put on themselves that get in the way of seeing reality, like that Irish bank I was telling you about.
Yes.
They don't want to see reality. They didn't want to hear what I had to say.
They just avoid the way.
They avoid it. So the blindfolds that we've identified, and you can probably name a few more, but and they really come down to sort of ego and fear. First of all, don't tell me something I don't want to hear. Like
I just want to live in my comfort zone.
I do not want to hear negative feedback. And you can look at example after example of companies that have dived or challengers that have crashed. Don't tell me. It's an inconvenient truth.
Are there still lots of companies?
I do it myself
around the world.
Actually, it was funny. I used to live in Malaysia. I used to live and work in Malaysia. I worked for Bank Negara. And so I know some great people in Malaysia still, and actually our designer of our slides is actually in Malaysia. So I sent her the slides on these 6 deadly blindfolds, which are arrogance and not listening to negative feedback and not listening to the customer and stuff like that. And she read the slide. She goes, "Kate, I have all 6 of these."
That's me.
Which one should I work on? I was like, "Honey, I have all 6 of them too. Just pick one." But it's the human condition. I'm afraid that we tend to be defensive sometime, or it's not even. I mean, sometimes it's ego, no question about it. But a lot of it is just we're so busy. We're so busy, and we have to choose what to focus on. Well, you have to pause and reflect, right? You have to find time to pause and reflect, to step back and say, what am I really doing? And as a team, what are we really doing? And very well-run individuals, and very well-run teams, and very well-run organizations, hit the pause button once in a while. They have what I call an out-of-body experience. The out-of-body experience is we have to be very good at what we're doing, and we have to always be saying, is that really what we should be doing?
Passion must be really the core of keeping reinvention going.
Passion for what your future really can be. Yeah, passion, because you have to be sure that the urgent doesn't drive out the important, and the short term doesn't drive out the long term. So you have to, and we have a lot of techniques to deal with that.
And talking about leadership right now, many organizations or even a country level is facing gaps of generation in which younger generation are very talented and quite successful at their young age.
Yeah, and very passionate.
Yes, and in many companies there may be a group or certain group of young generation. How should a company nourish or take benefit of these people, or how should they encourage collaboration between older generation and new generation, to nourish next gen leadership?
That's a great question, because I think we need to be much more age blind. I think we need to not worry about age so much. I think we need to say, what do they bring to the table? What do we need to do, and who can do it? When I think about leadership, I say, what are we trying to accomplish? What behaviors will get us there? And I think and a corollary to that is, what skills will get us there? And then it becomes immediately apparent that we need the skills that the younger generation has, because it's their age, not ours. What we bring to the table are things that are more sort of wisdom based, like how do we treat each other? How do we keep our priorities in order? How do we, honor the customers and things like that, as opposed to getting all wrapped up in the fabulous technology that they may have a lot of wisdom around themselves.
Kate, you've been to Europe, to North America, to many countries in Asia, Thailand and Southeast Asia. What's the culture, the differences in culture? Does it hold back reinvention?
Yeah, another good question. You're full of good questions. I guess I have two takes on the culture question in that condition. Yes, there are cultures that are, first of all, every culture is complicated, so there's no, the stereotypes, they hold true and they don't hold true. But I would say that in general, yeah, there are cultures that are, and by the way, regulatory systems and banking systems and all that are much more supportive of entrepreneurship, reinvention, forgiveness of mistakes, and all those kinds of things that lead to change. And that's where I think, for example, I'm American, that's where, for example, Silicon Valley has a huge advantage. It's just attracted these very ambitious, smart people who are also, by the way, hugely collaborative. I mean, they say that Silicon Valley is like, it's really more like it's one company, and it's a question of what department are you in, because and I've found that to be true. We do a lot of work in Silicon Valley, and I find that people are incredibly open and sharing, and they make introductions really easily and stuff like that.
Overall, what the skill sets you'd like to reckon for leaders or individuals in any organization to have to survive for reinvention in this age of disruption?
Well, our new research would tell us that the number one thing that leaders need to have, the core thing actually, that leaders need to have if they're going to make large change happen, which is going to take people out of their comfort zones, have them learn new skills, learn new jobs, maybe move, be in a new relationship, do all that hard stuff. The first thing they need to do is what we're calling inspire a movement. That's what Dr. Tarab did in Morocco. That's what Lou Gerstner did at IBM. That's what Ivan Seidenberg did at Verizon. What they do is they take it beyond employee engagement, and they just say, this is so mission critical. This is so important. If we don't do this, we're going to be in big trouble. And if we do this, we're going to have this remarkable future. And you're a part of it. We can't do it without you. That's really the number one thing. And then once they get that, so that's number one. So once they get that underway, then they have to keep that going. So the second thing we would say is inspire a movement, but then you have to generate and sustain that energy, right? Or otherwise it's just a flash in the pan. That's why we so often hear people saying, well, I'll just let this change pass, because change often isn't successful, so don't get engaged in it. But no, we're saying no, you want people to get so engaged in it, but then we also want them to keep it going. And so one of the things that we're researching right now, and there's some great examples out there, is how do you actually keep energy going? How do you keep it up and high? How do you keep people not falling back into their old patterns, but how do you keep them going?
It seems that the transition in the making of how small and large organizations have to adapt themselves to cope with disruption, and that's what Kate Sweetman reckon, that's reinvention. And that's all from Thai PBS World tonight.